We're viewing one of the sessions of videos that we are calling Conversations with Mocha. Mocha is sitting here next to me, and she and I are conducting a series of interviews with people in the community who are involved with animal welfare work. I'm Pat Valusek. I'm the chairperson of the New York State Humane Association, and I would like to introduce our guest today, who is Dr. Harry Hovel from the New York State Humane Association.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay. Harry, tell me a little bit about your background. Where did you come from? Where did you grow up? How did you come to be here?
I spent most of my childhood in New York State, up near Syracuse actually, a town called Fulton. But when I was 15, we moved to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I spent my high school in Brazil, which is really a paradise for a teenager, believe me. Then when I came to college, I moved back to Pittsburgh, went to Carnegie Mellon, eventually got a doctorate in electrical engineering there, and then joined IBM. And at IBM I did most of my work in solar energy research for 45 years until I retired.
So in Rio de Janeiro, did you go to, were there English-speaking schools that you went to? How did you?
Yeah, it was called the American School.
Okay.
It went from basically first grade through high school, but it had 30 different nationalities in it. There were kids from many countries all around the world, which is nice. It was like a miniature melting pot. And we got to meet a lot of different kinds of cultures and a lot of different kinds of people.
And they all spoke English at the school?
It was English speaking, but we learned to speak Portuguese at the same time.
Oh, well that's very interesting. You had a very interesting background. How long have you been involved in the animal welfare movement then?
Well, I loved animals since I was a small child. I still remember when I was 5 years old, about my earliest memory, that I found an injured animal and was extremely upset about it, and we took it to a vet and tried to help the animal. But ever since then I've been involved with animals. I joined many different animal welfare groups, and I even started my own animal rights group a few years ago.
And what was that called, Ray?
That was called the Animal Welfare Alliance.
Okay.
It was in Westchester County.
And it had an assemblage of groups under it?
No, in spite of the name being an alliance, it was really a group consisting of Westchester County, Rockland County, and Putnam County people. So I guess it was a bit of a mixture from that point of view, different counties.
And the objective of the group, what did that group do?
We did many different kinds of conventional animal rights activities. We had demonstrations, we did lobbyists, we held information meetings of all kinds. We wrote newspaper articles, letters to the editor, tried to influence people on all different kinds of animal issues.
Well, I recall that group, and I think it was pretty successful at the time.
It was.
Operating in its heyday. What was the initial trigger that moved you from a concern about animals, which all of us have, you know, caring about animals, we find them injured or something, we actually want to help them, but you moved on to something that was more concrete and a little more abstract to try and move the people or the state in a certain direction.
Well, when my daughter was in the kindergarten, she and her teacher asked me to come and make a presentation to her class on animal issues. So I put together something on dogs and cats and farm animals and species extinction, things like that, and I presented it to her class. That sort of started me off on a long career of making presentations in schools and high schools and colleges, even adult education actually, down in New York City. So I probably made several hundred presentations in various locations about animal issues over the years.
And my understanding too is you tried to focus on using alternatives in any kind of school experimentation, is that correct?
Oh yeah, we worked, one of our earliest issues was finding alternatives to dissection. And we put together a pretty big presentation on all the different, we actually had the hardware, we had the torsos and the frogs and all those kinds of things.
Real frogs?
No, plastic
frogs, okay.
And showed the kids all the different ways that they could use alternatives and learn just as much, if not more. And we also did a lot of research on animal experimentation for medical reasons to try to understand that issue. and come up with arguments that would show that it was better for people if you didn't experiment on animals. Same thing with factory farming, and the fact factory farming is not very healthy for human beings or animals for that matter. And we did a lot of work on that, on diet and health.
And this is, wait, in schools? You did
This
this?
was in
I'm surprised
schools.
that factory farming was actually
Yep.
allowed to be discussed in school.
Yeah, they invited us in, they invited me in when I made these presentations, and I had carte blanche to speak on any topic. I told the teacher ahead of time a list of things, and they asked me to present, and factory farming was one of them.
Oh, and this was to a classroom or to teachers?
This was to, very often, big assemblies,
Really?
as well as individual classes.
And you didn't have any of the adults in the room throwing things at you or
No,
anything
no.
for questioning any of that? I mean, because I can see where this would be a real threat to, well, maybe you didn't have that much of a farming community in the Westchester area, but I mean, you did that in upstate New York, you might be,
Yeah, well, we didn't do it in upstate.
yeah, you know, upstate New York might
No
pose a
problem.
problem, but they were very receptive to
Yes,
it. That's very
absolutely.
interesting. Do you know, to your knowledge, whether as a result of your presentations on the alternatives to experimentation on animals, did they use any of your suggestions? Do you know if ultimately somebody said, yes, we should do that?
Well, these were presentations to schools,
Right,
so we didn't make presentations to doctors' conventions, although I did make a lot of presentations at biological conferences on alternatives to dissection, for example. A lot of biology teachers did in fact adopt some of the suggestions we made about dissection alternatives. But animal experimentation is a much harder issue. At the time, the AMA, the American Medical Association, had a huge program trying to foster animal experimentation, to counter any of the people that had complaints about it. And so that was all going on. To this day, it's
it
never
would be
been
very
settled.
difficult. Now, I meant in the classrooms with the biology classrooms to have an alternative to a frog and everything. Some
Oh,
of
yes.
that you think was
That
embraced.
that
and
definitely did work, yes.
Well, I think that's a real cool. You must have been
Well,
real
that's
proud
good.
of that. Have you thought about being a train the trainer and have other individuals that you train to go out and do those similar kind of presentations to schools around?
No, it's a good thought, but
You were
I wasn't the one.
main one.
we did have a large group of people through a Boston group called NEVES, New England Anti-Vivisection Society, where we did have instructors all over New England
Oh, okay.
that went to schools and colleges and made presentations. And we all coordinated our things, we all supported each other, so from that point of view, you could say we trained ourselves, we trained each other.
Well, that sounds very excellent, that you even got classrooms moving in that direction. It's a wonderful thing. And how long, I know you're the treasurer in New York State Humane Association as I introduced you. How long have you been involved with NYSHA? We'll use the short name for it.
New York State, yeah, NYSHA, actually I was recruited into NYSHA, it turns out it's 26 years ago,
Oh my God,
by Samantha Mullen,
I see.
who actually recruited a number of people into, but she also got me into other organizations at the same time, so she was sort of my mentor in a way.
So it's been 26 years you've
26
been
years.
involved. As part of the New York State Humane Association workshops that we put on for police across the state, you do the presentation on the connection between animal abuse and human violence and indicate that there's a very strong correlation there. And you've been doing this for many years. What prompted you to go into that direction?
One of the things that was going on when I was making presentations on many topics, extinction or factory farming, whatever it might be, I came across some meetings in New York City in which university professors were giving speeches on the possible connection, that time it was many years ago, possible connection between violence and cruelty. And I got very, very interested in this topic, believing that you could help people and animals at the same time, so it was a win-win situation. So I spent years doing research, in fact I still do research on that issue, and came to realize how really important it would be for the public to know how significant that link is, because there's so many areas where when you help animals and prevent cruelty, people are the benefactors as much as the animals. So that's why I've continued to this day being so strongly into that topic and trying to get it out to the public as much as I possibly can.
Do you find that the level of reception for that idea has grown more positive as time has gone on?
I think so. This is sort of something which the public has known sort of in the back of their minds for a long time. It's only been 3,000 years since the first philosopher said the way you treat animals is how you're going to treat humans.
And who was that?
Pythagoras,
Pythagoras said it so
the
many
Greek
years ago.
philosopher. But at the same time, even though people know that and you see it in TV shows like Law and Order, every now and then it comes up, they don't really grasp it, the significance of it, to realize how beneficial it would be if the world spent much more effort in preventing cruelty to animals, because every violent crime, every type of violent crime, murder, aggravated assault, rape, whatever it might be, has a close association with animal cruelty. But interestingly enough, even a lot of non-violent crimes have associations with animal cruelty at the same time. So,
For example, can you give us a couple examples of what you mean?
in a lot of countries, even around the world, this goes on all over the world, this is not just the United States. There are a lot of countries which have made correlations between burglary and car theft and other kinds of non-violent routine, if you want to call it that kind of crime, and found out that it's been closely associated with the kinds of people they've been arresting for those crimes, associated with animal cruelty that people have in their background. So it's a no-brainer that many different kinds of crimes would be helped a great deal if people paid attention to animal cruelty. It's kind of counterintuitive in a way, that if you go and help animals, you're going to prevent rapes or prevent murders. But it really is true. It really does work out that way when you look at the data, look at the research.
And what do you feel, I mean, it's not only indicative of some sort of violence going on in the home, but it could be predictive of future behaviors.
Yes, particularly with children. If children have some kind of a cruelty going on, that's a huge flag, because it means something in their background is going on which is driving them in that direction. And the thing that they evolve to eventually is animal cruelty, because that's sort of an innocent being, that there's no consequences for them in their minds if they abuse that innocent being. So animal cruelty is a big flag for potential future human violence. It doesn't mean it's absolutely 100%, of course, but it means there's a large correlation and is a driving force for young people to be pathologically involved in both cruelty and violence at the same time. So when you fight that, however it is that you fight it, you're doing a great service. Probably the most significant thing of all is domestic violence. Because domestic violence is the training ground, but it's also the thing that perpetuates the cycle. You might wonder, why is violence going on year after year, century after century, millennia after millennia? It's because something keeps perpetuating, keeps driving it. And it turns out the thing is domestic violence, because that's where a young child, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, is learning that violence is the way the world works. And mommy and daddy are showing them, they're setting the example when they're cruel to the dog or the cat. And when they hit the child, or when they beat the child, or when the man beats the woman, this is a training ground for children. And it causes them to grow up without empathy, without sympathy, and with these violent tendencies. So fighting domestic violence is one of the most important things that society could possibly do to break this perpetual cycle.
And it seems to me that at one point, domestic violence and wife beating, I mean, and it could be husband beating actually, to be fair, at one point was treated not seriously at all. It was like considered, that happens in a home, that's their business, it's not society's business.
Exactly.
Police didn't want to, investigate, and animal cruelty was down here someplace, But I see from everything I read in the papers, and when we do workshops, police seem to really focus. We had one workshop in Wayne County recently, and the sheriff there was very focused on domestic violence and was trying to stop it. So do you see that as not just an isolated incident with the Wayne County Sheriff, but more police agencies are becoming much more tuned into paying attention.
That's what I understand, that the message is slowly but surely getting through. We've done it, our group, York State Humane Association, other groups, different states even, have been presenting this problem, has presented this correlation for quite a number of years, and it's beginning to sink in. The hardest thing to change are the judges. The legislators sort of get it, if you want to call it that. The police are beginning to get it as well. They
You mean
realize
the animal cruelty or the domestic
animal
violence
cruelty,
or the whole
the
ball
whole
of
thing,
wax?
the whole thing, the domestic violence in particular.
Right.
Because the police are on the front lines. They
Right.
see the cruelty,
Right.
they see the injured animal, they see the battered wife, or they see the raped victim, and they realize the correlation. Prosecutors are influenced by the police, and they see the connection that way too. Judges are a little bit harder. Of all the groups that have been resisting the change, I think judges are probably the worst. But it's coming around. I think people have begun to change. We have seen, even in New York State, a movement toward where police are taking animal cruelty more seriously than they did before. District attorneys are taking animal cruelty more seriously, realizing that it makes their job easier, that it will protect future victims, that it'll prevent human suffering as well as human death, as well as the animal cruelty as well. It's a win-win situation all around, and I think prosecutors, police, and eventually judges are beginning to really realize that.
You created a booklet entitled The Connection. Do you happen to have a copy of the booklet with you?
Yes, we do.
And so I wondered if we could show that to our audience, and you could speak to it for a moment, what prompted you to write it, and where people can obtain it.
This could be obtained from the NYSHA website. It's actually available in a soft copy,
Okay.
so they can actually download it right away. Or it's available as a hard copy by writing to us. This booklet is basically a compilation of 15 or 20 years of presentations on this topic. After I had given so many presentations on this issue and had sort of honed it, got it to exactly where I wanted, I decided it would be a good thing for people that maybe couldn't hear the presentation to be able to see all the research, all the data. So this really covers the violent crime of all different kinds. It covers from infants up to serial killers. It covers all the research data is there, the references are there for anybody that wants to follow it in more detail. So it's just, it's a resource. It's available for anybody who wants it, and I hope it will be used as a resource and will be
And
valuable.
probably as school teachers, anybody might be interested in this, right? And
Yeah.
not just necessarily law enforcement personnel, but anyone dealing with children, or especially children, I would think, right?
Yeah, it has the message in here, particularly of how getting to children at an early age can prevent this future violence. Bullying in schools, for instance, is a big problem, and there is even a correlation between animal cruelty, bullying, and future violence. In fact, most bullies become violent. But there's also a large description here of the domestic violence connection. That's what I really wanted to get in very great detail, so that people would understand how important that is. When you fight domestic violence, you can stop this perpetual cycle. That's the thing that will stop the cycle. I don't see anything else that can. You can put people in jail until the jails are filled to the brim. It doesn't stop it. What can stop it and prevent it in the future is fighting and preventing domestic violence. And animal cruelty is so connected to it that they're practically synonymous. If there's an animal present in the household, if there's domestic violence in that household, there's animal cruelty in that household.
Well, Dr. Hovel, it's been very nice talking to you, and I'm very delighted that you are on our New York State Humane Association board, and that you will continue to do these workshops for as long as we ever do them. I think it's a wonderful thing that we're providing to the community, and your particular segment is always well received. So thank you very much. Thank you to our filmer and to this series for allowing us to present these fine members of the community to the public, to all the people in the public. Remember to subscribe to our video series, Conversations with Mocha, by clicking the subscribe button below. You can also request to receive notifications for each new video by clicking the button next to the subscribe button. Remember to review the description below for links to the New York State Humane Association, and we also have links there to our Animal Cruelty Investigation Manual, as well as numerous helpful sheets for the police and others and examples of cases.